Armin Sports Station is also your connection with the top news stories from around the world. To stay informed, lock your radio dial on AM 1300 KGLO.
Your hometown news station is AM 1300 KGLO and KGLOAM.com. And it's Friday, and Fridays we're going to try to give you a legislative update and talk with some of our local legislators here during this time, just kind of in the same way we've done Ask the Mayor for years here on KGLO, but talking with our local legislators. And Christian Hermanson from Mason City, State Representative, joins us in studio. Thank you, sir, for checking in with us today and bearing the cold and coming out here to the studios.
It was a little brisk coming in this morning, but glad to be out here with you, Bob.
Pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you.
Yeah,
or slide in whichever works best.
Is that a little better?
Oh, we want people to hear you, of course. Yeah. And your legislative district basically covers Mason City, a little bit of Sarasota County too, right?
Mason City and the eastern 2/3 of the county. So everything except for Clear Lake, essentially.
In your first term, and obviously you had your freshman year last year, and you start the second year, and I would assume that things are a little bit different now that you've got a year down, and you can move in that second year, probably feel a little bit more comfortable on a lot of things.
Yeah, definitely coming back down to the State House. My running joke last year was I'm still trying to figure out where all the bathrooms are. I think I've got them all pinned down now, but definitely what we in the military would have said, 29 years, it's going to be a common reference for me. But, you get the battle rhythm a little bit better. Showing up, that every morning at 8:30 we gavel in typically, and that committee assignments are going to require a lot of your time and a lot of your focus, whether you're on a subcommittee or you're actually having a full committee meeting.
Remind people, your background before you went into the legislature, and maybe just talk a little bit about why you wanted to be a state legislator here to represent Mason City.
Yeah, absolutely. So 29 years in the military. I retired as a Chief Master Sergeant from the United States Air Force. I got about 15 years active duty time, 14 in the reserves. My last assignment was at headquarters, United States European Command, as the Intelligence Directorate, Senior Enlisted Leader. On the reserve side, it was probably one of the capstone of my career, as you can imagine, getting to spend a lot of time over in Germany and working with 2,400 really, truly great Americans and allied partners across 9 geographically separated sites, on 3 continents.
Right.
So outside of that, I've worked in law enforcement. I was a police officer at the VA Medical Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota for about 8 years. I got about 14 years total in law enforcement between the military and civilian. I worked for the VA at the benefits office, the regional office up there in St. Paul for a number of years before going back essentially on active duty with UCOM over in Stuttgart before I retired. 2020, we moved back home here. Back to Iowa right before COVID kicked off. So that was a fun time. But again, a lot of time back and forth between Germany and here, with the largest land war since World War II kicking off in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. So that kind of kept us busy for a little while. Main reason that I wanted to serve, I just wanted to keep serving, feel an obligation to bring the skills and talents that I have, that I've developed over the last 30 odd years of career arc, and I think it fits really well with our community.
Well, the session got underway last week, and that's typically almost a week of ceremonial stuff with the condition of the state, the condition of the judiciary, condition of the guard, leadership, first day speeches and everything. But a little atypical. You usually don't see a bill go through either the House or the Senate right away on the second week. And that did happen earlier this week with the eminent domain bill, 64-28, I think was the final vote margin. And just, talk about the House bill, first of all, and why you supported it.
Yeah, so 2104, eminent domain ban of use of carbon dioxide pipelines in the state of Iowa, primarily to protect property rights. I'm very cautious in the application of eminent domain. The term, no eminent domain for private gain is out there. We've had railroads, oil lines. There's plenty of private gain going on in the pipeline game, or in commerce in general, with right-of-ways and whatnot. But we need to be very, very careful in how we apply that. And if there's a way to get a path through voluntarily, I think Summit should have the ability to do that all day long. But if it's involuntary and there's no other circumstances in which we can do that, I think just banning it outright was probably the smart move. Whether the governor will sign it, I don't know. That's her decision. And maybe we'll end up having to play ball with the Senate and find a compromise there somewhere. But that's going to come in the future.
Well, that compromise, obviously, to get any bill to the governor is going to have to happen, because the Senate bill is it does have a lot of differences in it, and one of those is kind of widening the aspect from Summit's side of things, where they can maybe go around those places that don't want that pipeline on their property.
Right. And I think at the end of the day, as long as a private property owner is a willing participant, that's probably the best result.
Do you think that bill will get through, or there will be a compromise?
There's a lot of baseball before we could come up with that.
Right. And of course, the governor got a bill last year and she vetoed it. So we'll see what happens. But, the other big thing that the legislature will tackle that, is going to be on everybody's minds, property tax reform. And everybody's got their bill out now. The governor presented hers during the condition of the state. The Senate Republicans presented theirs as well last week. House Republicans presented their plan this week. And, maybe just your analysis of seeing all those bills now and what may happen.
Well, there's definitely a lot of variation between the three versions that are out there. There's going to be a lot of work done and a lot of compromise made now that everybody's got their cards on the table. The governor and the House bill cap local revenue growth at 2%. The Senate's version is variable tied to inflation. Excuse me. The homeowner relief components of these, the House version uses a flat exemption, $25,000 for residential across the board. Senate proposals, 50% homestead exemption, and the governor targeting specifically seniors. I don't know that any of those are the right answer. I think I would like to see a little bit broader widening of the aperture on that. Maybe not just targeting seniors alone. That's a broad-based thing, and not that I don't have a soft spot for homeowners in that age bracket, but if somebody owns $1 million house and has $4 million in assets sitting around, I don't think they need to have an exemption. Right.
Can't remember where I was gonna go with my next question. Unfortunately,
it's not often
on this,
I get to derail you, Bob.
You're one of the few that's been able to do that. I mean, the big thing here, everybody's got their plan out, and there's some similarities and there's some differences. And like we talked about with the eminent domain bill, this at least looks like there'll be some room for pieces to slide, and probably more finding a compromise compared to the eminent domain bill, it seems like.
I think the reality is everybody, you mentioned earlier, this is my second year.
Right.
It's still my freshman assembly, but it is my second year. So my feeling on this year is that everybody wants to see something done. Last year was kind of standing on the dance floor, eyeballing each other and figuring out where who we were going to dance with. This year, everybody's got their dance card filled out, and the leadership teams are going to do the negotiating. We'll get to have our input on these things. We'll caucus on it, and the caucus experience that we have on the House side, when you get 67 of us in the room together, and we broad range of everybody thinks that the conservative side of things is one unified block, and I assure you we are not. We range everything from very conservative to very, very moderate to, I dare say even a couple of liberal people maybe hanging out in there.
Right.
So you get a lot of opinions and a lot of input, and I'm going to hear from our local government officials, county and city. And I'm pretty sure Aaron Burnett's already got me on speed dial.
Yep.
So these inputs are going to be heard, and, we'll get to tell leadership what we think of the different things and where we're going to stand on it.
And then my original question that I'd forgotten was going to be about local leaders talking about that allowable growth of, once again, it's somewhere, depending on the bill, 2% to 4%. And, you said Aaron Burnett, our city administrator here in Mason City, probably has you on speed dial. What have been the conversations with you and him and the biggest concerns?
hamstringing their ability to raise revenue, essentially, at the end of the day. And I hear that and I understand that, and I want to be a good partner for them. I don't want them to be hamstrung in their ability to fund their operations. I think at the end of the day, looking out for my constituents and taxpayers and property owners, the thing is that we're doing it smart and efficiently and not overstepping unnecessarily onto the taxpayer.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this evolves here through the next couple of months, I assume. And probably not going to be a right away decision by everybody. So it'll be good to see what happens, because I'm sure a lot of people through, since you, won an election and, been seated in the House, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have complained about property taxes.
It was the single biggest thing that I heard about door knocking during the campaign, and continues to be the single largest constituency issue that I hear.
We, as we mentioned earlier, the last week was the condition addresses, state judiciary and guard, and the governor's speech. Was there anything else besides property tax reform that stood out in that speech to you?
Couple of issues. She wanted to work on the county veteran service officer reform. I think there's some work to be done on that program. The state funds CVSOs at the county level at essentially half of a full-time employee. And so she's looking to do a little bit of work on that. The proposal I saw, I wasn't particularly excited about, the performance-based, giving more money to counties that are successful in getting more services for veterans. I'm all about recognizing success and awarding performance, but that's leaving our more rural counties behind. Saragota County, we're pretty fortunate here. The county fully funds, I think, a couple of CVSOs, hardworking office down there. But we're surrounded by rural counties, Mitchell, Worth, Winnebago, Hancock, Franklin, and they don't have necessarily full-time staff dedicated to this. And so I got to make sure I'm also looking out for, my brother and sister veterans out in the outstate areas that are a little more rural than we are.
Anything else in the speech that?
I did have something else, but I completely dumped it when I started riffing right there.
It must be the ambiance of the room this morning. We keep dropping off, but condition of the judiciary speech, and I'll let you think in the back of your mind about more on the Governor Reynolds' speech. But the biggest thing from Susan Christensen, the Chief Justice, obviously, revamping the magistrate courts and dealing with district court judge pay, because starting to see some district court judges, either not people applying for vacancies, or even in the one case that she pointed out, district judges are taking higher paying jobs with people on the other side of the table with the county attorney. And it's been something that Susan Christensen has brought up in the last couple of speeches that she's made. And I'm not sure what the legislature's attitude is about, trying to get some of those things accomplished that she wants.
I think everybody recognizes that something needs to be done with this. The reality is that as code sits right now, they have to maintain a magistrate in every county. And she very elegantly pointed out that is probably not really necessary. Most of us, just in conversations with my colleagues, recognize that, she's probably right. She knows her establishment far better than we do. Definitely on board with working with the judiciary to make that happen, and to do a little revamping there and bring them in line with, modern needs and modern standards. The system as it's set up right now, I think, is well over 100 years old. And the pay lagging issue is definitely a problem. And not only with judges, though, but also with contract lawyers and indigent, I think I said that right, indigent
Yep.
defense.
Yep.
There was a story that was told about DUI in Davenport having to be released because they couldn't find a defense attorney for the guy. And, that's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. That's a public safety issue. And the reality is, in a community that size, they should be able to find at least a contract attorney that's willing to take that rate. So they weren't able to do that there. That means we need to pay more money. That means more state tax dollars going into that. And but it's not an insurmountable sum, and out of a $9.46 billion budget, I think we can find a little more cash for that.
Something that was on the potentially on the Republican agenda, as well as getting tougher on crime and stiffening potentially some sentences for repeat offenders. Is that something you think we'll get through the State House this year?
I'm really hoping we can. You see, and this isn't the 3 strikes and you're out kind of thing. This is more like 8, 9, 10, 12 strikes. And it's not even necessarily you're out or throw away the key. It's just stiffening the penalties and making sure that they're actually serving the sentences that they were given to begin with. So I'm really hopeful that we're going to see it. It's Representative Holtz, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, and I was speaking with him earlier this week, and I think he said that it was going to be midweek next week or early the week after that we should see something.
Because I know a lot of people complain about suspended sentences that they see or hear in the news on this radio station, and make comments on Facebook and whatnot about suspended sentences or lighter sentences or whatnot. It's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because if you stiffen the sentences and send people to prison, well, you got to have that space in prison. So is that part of the equation too, of finding the space for potential more prisoners at all?
So from my understanding of it, and by no means am I an expert on this topic, but from my understanding of it is that we're not short on space right now. In the future, if we start retaining people longer, that could become an issue. But from just quiet conversations I've had, we're more than willing to bring the facilities up to the needs of what they need to have. Just looking at the chart I got right here, corrections gets 3.7% of the state budget. That's not an insignificant number. That's a lot. I'd like to see a little bit of work on reducing recidivism and diversion programs to help keep people out long term. But when we can't keep people that are given 20-year sentences in for more than a year or 18 months, that's unacceptable.
Department of Corrections, and of course the director of the Department of Corrections, Basin City native Beth Skitters. So we've been fun to follow, and classmate of mine as well. So it's been fun to follow her career as being the Department of Corrections director down there. So, the committees you serve on, Ways and Means, of course, you're the vice chair of that, and the biggest thing on Ways and Means, obviously, would be the property tax bill, I would assume.
Yep.
Veterans Affairs, you kind of talked about a little bit from what the governor had said. Public safety and natural resources, anything that the Natural Resources Committee is going to tackle this year?
I haven't really tracked anything specific yet. You never quite know what's coming down the pipeline, and we're just getting to the point where bills are being filed and coming to the surface. So I'm expecting to see a little bit more. Our chair, Devin Wood, Representative Wood, handed me the department bill this year, so I'll be running that. Nothing really exciting. A lot of changing happy to glad and make just code alignment things.
And public safety, anything that committee, other than obviously the revising the sentences, I think would be the Judiciary Committee, right? But public safety, just talk about that committee.
Biggest single thing that we're working on there is right at the moment is kratom. I can't really know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's an herbal substance from somewhere in Southeast Asia. And there's 2 versions of this. There's the air quotes natural form,
right?
And then there's the 7-OH synthetic variant, and they're virtually indistinguishable on the store shelf. There's no field tests for a patrol officer or an investigator to run on this thing to tell which one's which. And a lot of times the natural version is adulterated with the synthetic version, and heard a lot of really bad stories about this stuff. The synthetic version is particularly nasty and is going to be getting scheduled shortly by the federal government, as we understand it, sometime in the next week or 2. We're anticipating that. We're working. We just passed it out of committee this week to schedule both here in the state. So we'll be bringing that to the House floor sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Well, the synthetic forms of illegal drugs just seems to be becoming more and more of a problem, not just in the state, but throughout the nation. And I keep seeing more and more criminal complaints here locally. Looking through the court files, that those are mentioned in there. So it's becoming a ever-growing problem.
Well, and it was a big ask. I meet with public health on the regular,
Sure.
And it was a big ask from them to help get this scheduled. And so I'm perfectly happy to do that. We've got enough substances out there in our community, whether legal or illicit. And this one right now, your 10-year-old son or grandson can walk into a store and buy it, and there's absolutely no reason why they couldn't legally sell it to them.
Well, that needs to be corrected, I guess. So
we're working on it.
Yep. Anything else that you foresee that the legislature will be tackling this year, or anything else you want to hit on?
Oh, there's going to be a lot of things. One thing I like to joke about is there's 150 bright idea fairies down there. I'm just one of them. I try to keep my work confined to the committees and stay focused on what the other bright idea fairies are bringing around to the table. But I am going to have a couple of things. One of them that I just talked about, I announced yesterday on my Facebook page, is that we're bringing a service animal grant program for veterans to the floor. Hopefully, be $100,000 annual allocation to the Iowa State Department of Veterans Affairs, and there'll be a one-time $5,000 grant for any veteran that's selected to receive a service animal. Those funds will go directly to the providing organizations. So there's organizations like Retrieving Freedom down out of Waverly, or Puppy Jake out of the Des Moines area, that provide service animals to veterans. And so that'll help defer some of that cost for them. It's costing anywhere from like $25,000 to $30,000 to train a dog over 2 years. And a lot of dogs wash out of the programs. Right. One of the other things that I was working on, Puppy Jake approached me earlier this year to work on a code change. They have people that are training service animals and live in rental properties. And this is all volunteer work. Nobody gets paid for this. And their landlords aren't accepting these service animals and training as service animals like they should by the federal ADA. And so their lawyers came down and said, hey, there's a little bit of code language in Iowa code that if we just put service animal and training in here, it's just an easy insertion that clears this up, and people aren't getting gigged for $350 for a pet fee to do, some really good work. All right.
We'll leave it at that, unless you have anything else quick to add in.
Nope. If anybody wants to reach out and contact me, just Google Christian Hermanson, find my page on the legislature's website, and my contact info is on there, email, phone. Always happy to talk.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. We'll have you in again, hopefully sometime soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
Christian Hermanson, the state representative from Mason City, and our legislative update today here on your hometown news station, AM 1300 KGLO.